This is News Moment. Give us a minute, and we'll give you some stuff nearby. Good morning, I'm Joe. Top story, the Upper Peninsula. Why does it belong to Michigan? It doesn't even have a contiguous landmass with the rest of the state. But they do seem to take better care of their roadways in winter than Wisconsin. Canadian border control. Did we become friends that night? Or did we draw each other in with our wit and charm? Call me. 3 steps for how you, as a gun-toting, God-fearing, truck-lifted American, cannot come off like a security threat after the break. Think you're ready for that next big European vacation? But did you remember travel health insurance? Protect your American family while traveling abroad with Americans Travel Health Insurance. Pay your same American rates you know and love to get great health care while abroad, at least in case of emergencies. Plans start as low as $500 a month for individuals and $2,000 a month for families. Traveling for only a week or two? Great, our plans work for you, as 1 or 2 weeks are still covered in our mandatory monthly rates. Your family won't have to worry about bodily harm while abroad, at least in life or limb situations anymore. American Travel Health Insurance does not cover most medical needs. As always, lowest price plans have insanely high deductibles. Payment plans available for those who cannot afford to pay upfront with low rates and only 35% APR. American Travel Health Insurance is only good in North America, as has been struck down by health commissions across the globe as fraudulent. But who would listen to people outside of American borders? That's a sign of weakness, and who would do that? Not you gun-toting big strong man who protects his family from caravans of illegal immigrants, causing you to wait longer to eat your meal at the Golden Corral. Hoorah! Nearly the whole village of Dundee, Wisconsin had a collective moment yesterday when the Youth Christian Studies Group presented their project, Christianity Across the Globe, during the segment of Mass usually featuring the sermon. It left tens of people shook with the fact that they haven't even traveled to Canada or Mexico themselves. John Doe, local county sheriff.
Yeah, this sort of thing happens once in a while out here. Folks go 50, 60, 70 years living in God's country and they realize they might not have to deal with the 20 below temperatures in January. I mean, a few hours south and they could probably be poolside with an old-fashioned in the warm sun.
When asked to comment on why no one has traveled to Canada, the sheriff couldn't come up with a reason.
Yeah. Heck, I've never been to Canada.
Leaving the sheriff shook himself. Good luck, John.
I've been living 40-some years. Been a resident of Wisconsin and California during that time, and had the privilege to travel due to military, work, and leisure. But now it was time to expand. Move out of the United States and North America.
There was one thing I had to do before leaving. I had to say hello and goodbye to Canada, our neighbor to the north. In all this time, I had never traveled within those borders. It was time to get that stamp in my passport and see what I had been missing. We had everything we were moving with on us, including our 2 dogs, Minnie and Leia, and our cat, Chloe. All of us piled into a moving van and headed north. First, we would have to break out of Wisconsin. We left later in the day due to the need of going to Madison first to get medical paperwork necessary for international travel with our pets. So we used up the remainder of our daylight with this portion of the trip. The sky went fully dark after we saw the last view of Door County from across the Bay of Green Bay. Hey Joe, you don't have any video of this. Yeah, I don't. It was flat and boring farmland. And once we made it out someplace more visually interesting, it got dark. And for some reason, the van's brights wouldn't stay engaged. So I had to hold the stick in to keep them going until they would just switch back automatically. Why? I don't know. There were more automated systems in this moving van than I had experienced before. I figured the lights were user error, but I had a way to circumvent the situation, so I stuck with it and didn't pay much mind to the fact that the low beams were rather dim as well. Now, our first stop was Escanaba, Michigan. My father once scoped out this place to potentially work and live, and I have not regretted this option did not come to pass. Could I be proved wrong? Of course I could, but no one that day was doing the town any favors. Bethany used the restroom and stocked up on snacks and drinks for the road while I took the dogs out to stretch their legs. And there was nothing friendly in the looks we got from the locals. A whole bunch of, "You aren't from around here, are ya?" kind of looks. Keep in mind their accent would be very different from that. Once done, we were back in the van and heading down dark highways. For those of you outside the Midwest, please understand, this is not simply a drive in a dark situation. There is large wildlife in those parts that love jumping in front of moving vehicles. Things like white-tailed deer, bear, and in this part of the US, potentially moose. And even the smaller animals like skunks, raccoons, bobcats, tons of stuff. We crossed paths with a cute fox that night, and luckily, that was it. What took us by surprise was the painted black Amish buggy traveling with very little light on it. Luckily, the slow-moving vehicle sign was reflective, so if you're seeing this somehow, sorry folks, I didn't mean to blast you with my high beams, but I didn't see you until the last moments. Luckily, caffeine and adrenaline kept me going real well that night. Plus, having to be aware of the lights more so than usual had me alert for the full drive. We ended up crossing the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge near midnight. It is a tall bridge that goes over the St. Mary River between Lake Superior and Lake Huron. Lots of lights in that area at night. So there were opportunities to catch glimpses of ships far below. But overall, I was trying to make sure I was following the signs as best I could. No need to make a scene while doing an international border crossing in an all-white rental van. At the far side of the bridge was border control, and luckily, at that time of night, there was only one car ahead of us, and it was already pulling away, so we got to drive on up and get immediate service. Nice. While gathering up passports, I asked if they also wanted validation of vet records for the animals, as all websites said to have it available. And they didn't want it though. What they did want was a bit of the quick wit. As I drove up, of course, I still had my seatbelt on, and when I tried to hand over my documents for the immigration official, I couldn't quite reach their booth. So I unlatched my belt and commented, "You're so far away." To which he replied, "I'm not far away. You're far away." "Touché, sir," was all I could reply with a laugh. 'Cause I was far away. We had a good little casual chit-chat before he switched gears into business mode, which was very apparent when all personality left his face and everything was suddenly on the straight and narrow. No problems though. A minute or two later, we were processed through. And sadly, no stamps. I'm assuming because of biometric features in the passport. Ugh, thanks. I wanted a stamp. But we were officially in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Woo! Now that we made it to our destination for the night, time flew by even faster. We still had to find our Airbnb, unload luggage and animals to an upper apartment, plus walk the dogs before calling it a night as well. So I ended up taking them down Second Line West at what felt like 1 a.m., which brought my awareness to a Tim Hortons not far from where we stayed. Hell yes! That will be breakfast in the morning, I thought. What else would be more Canadian than that? Once back in the Airbnb, we had to wind down a bit, so Bethany and I took time to release any leftover energy with a bit of pet collective before passing out. In the morning, I collected the breakfast order for Bethany and headed over to Tim Hortons for my first ever bites of this Canadian delicacy. To say the least, we now understand why there are so many of these all over Canada. But we couldn't stick around long as our checkout time was closing in. Once loaded back in, we took to the Trans-Canada Highway. Bethany had traveled around Lake Superior herself many years ago, and she wanted to share a bit of that beauty with me. From Sault Ste. Marie, we drove out to Twilight Resort and back, stopping at Agawa Crafts and the Canadian Carver to check out the tourist trap and to use the dog rest stop area. While returning to Sault Ste. Marie, we stopped at the halfway point of the Trans-Canada Highway rest stop next to the Chippewa Falls. Here, we got the one picture of ourselves on the trip. We even swapped being photographers with another couple, which allowed us to have more than a selfie at this stop. This drive was very beautiful. We had peak colors in the trees, and the shoreline of Lake Superior is a great drive. That night, we were due in Sudbury.
But what? You got a problem with Canada Gooses, and you got a problem with me, and I suggested that one marinate.
This is where a very nice person helped inform me that my rental was actually just using daytime running lights, not the actual headlamps. Wow, I had totally missed that and had driven 2 nights now with really dim headlamps and apparently no rear lights. Sorry, I was an idiot. The next day, we did not have any sightseeing. We had to cover ground as our next night was slated for Mirabel, Quebec. It was interesting to see signs start getting more French on this stretch. That night was our last night in Canada, and the universe had queued up some anxiety for us. First up, we ordered some food for delivery, and our cat Chloe determined she had had enough of being cooped up and bolted out the door when it arrived. It was twilight, and this little tortoiseshell cat ran out to the backyard of the Airbnb, which was a small apartment attached to the home of the host. Bethany chased her onto the large patio, waving inside to the family as they watched her dash past after her cat. I went the other direction to head off our cat, possibly on the front side of the house, which was a good move, as when Bethany came around the corner, she caught some rocks running in flip-flops and wiped out. Chloe dashed to the front patio of the host's home, where I was able to pluck her up and receive some of that typical tortie attitude. Later, after the anxiety of possibly losing our cat in Canada passed, we laid down for the night, and I experienced a version of this webcomic. This is where I think I've had the worst panic attack of my life. My brain kept repeating all the ways things could go wrong the next day, which, by the way, was the day we would arrive at Boston Logan International Airport for our flight to our new home overseas. So, I'm trying to calm myself down through controlled breathing, imagery work, anything. But it could only calm my brain for moments before it would just go buck wild again. I was nearly in tears as I imagined the worst possible outcomes and how I would have to mitigate them, and how much it would set us back and complicate the whole move in so many ways. Eventually, Bethany woke up from hearing me whimpering in the night and spent time with me to calm me down the best she could. It was bad. Our last day in Canada included bypassing Montreal, seems like a nice city, and heading for the US border at Phillipsburg. We were convinced we'd be able to hit up one last Tim Hortons on this leg, but no dice. We had the sweet, sweet taste of Canadian nectar of the gods and have been denied it ever since. Oh, Tim Hortons, when shall we see you again? Hopefully soon. The border crossing back into the US didn't have the same kind of vibe as the crossing into Canada. But after seeing our puppies crated in the back of the van and no illegal immigrants hiding, we were good to go on the last stretch of the trip. Now, we had a scenic drive through Vermont with casual US highway driving. That was until we closed in on Boston. My God, folks, get a rail system or something. I don't know. Maybe you do have one. I don't. What? Do you not use it? What? Why is everyone on the highway all the time? Because even the bypass around the city was bumper to bumper at a crawl. But after all that, the last bit of the trip was dropping off the truck in Fall River and meeting friends of a friend who would graciously help us get to Boston Logan with our luggage and animals. Wonderful people whom we have casually stayed in touch with since. You will get your bungee cords back. I swear it. Once in the international terminal and in line, I started stressing about the dogs again. And once they were checked by baggage and security, they were through to the secure side of the airport to be loaded on the plane. Once we got through TSA with Chloe, we were on the secure side of the international terminal. And that is when the stress slowly stopped. And with that, we could say the Canadian trip was officially at an end. And the next trip had begun, our move overseas. But that is a story for another time. And another YouTube channel. Look at that. Now, we may not have gotten to experience everything Canada. Hell, we didn't even see a moose. And all I'm going to say is don't believe all that AI garbage on the internet showing you these hulking beasts. As far as we're concerned, they don't exist. Moose are Canadian propaganda. Seeing is believing, and we didn't see anything. Oh, what was I saying? Oh, God, it feels like I was in the void there for a few seconds.
Canada. Thank you for Tim Hortons, ice hockey, SCTV, Kids in the Hall, all the famous people you've produced. Keep being you. And who knows, maybe we'll be back again sometime. Maybe to drive the Alcan Highway as we get out and travel.
Nice country, kid. What's your name? Canada.